The first time I met Elias Morgan, I accidentally told him I wasn't interested in sleeping with rich men who used cologne strong enough to knock out a horse. The worst part was that I didn't know he was my new boss. The second worst part was that he actually looked offended for 3 seconds, then amused for the next 10 minutes. If I had known that moment would shift the ground beneath my life in New York City, maybe I would have chosen my words better. Or maybe not. Because looking back, the chaos of that misunderstanding was the very thing that made his heart tilt toward mine. I had arrived in Manhattan 2 weeks before, freshly dumped, recently broke, and still pretending I knew what I was doing. My friends back in Arizona said I was brave. Brave is a generous word for a guy who moves across the country with one suitcase, half a plan, and a confidence level close to negative numbers. The elevator to the top floor of Morgan Group was too shiny for comfort. It reflected my stressed-out face in almost every direction. I tugged at my shirt, which I prayed looked professional enough. My friend Ava had whispered before I left, "Just be normal. Or at least don't say anything insanely stupid." I think we both know how that turned out. I stepped out onto a floor that looked like it had been designed by someone who wanted to intimidate people through architecture. Clean lines, glass everything, cold marble, and plants that were way too green to be real. A receptionist led me into a private lounge area where they said to wait for the CEO. The CEO. I didn't know his name yet. All I knew was that this internship paid better than any job I had ever had, and I needed it desperately. My rent depended on it. My next month of food depended on it. My sanity maybe depended on it too. Naturally, I decided to cope with the pressure by ranting under my breath. God, wealthy men better not be nightmares here, I muttered to myself, pacing. I'm not dealing with some rich guy with hair gel and ego issues. Honestly, if he so much as tries to flirt with me, I swear I will fling myself out a window. I've had enough toxic alphas in my life. I was dramatic when stressed. Very dramatic. What I didn't realize was that a tall man had entered the lounge behind me, and was standing there, listening, for much longer than was humane. When I finally turned around, I saw him. Black suit, dark storm-like eyes, a jawline sharp enough to cut stone. His hair slightly messy, but in a deliberate, effortless way that screamed too wealthy to care. And the cologne, oh God, it was strong. I froze. Then blurted the sentence that would go down in history as one of my life's greatest failures. I'm sorry, but I don't sleep with strangers. Especially not rich ones who smell like they walked through a perfume store disaster. The man stared at me like I had just slapped him across the face with a dictionary. Then he spoke, voice low. Interesting introduction. My blood evaporated. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean I thought you were someone else. I didn't know you were, you could be, he raised an eyebrow. Could be what? I died inside. Completely. Emotionally. Spiritually. You've been speaking for about 40 seconds, he added calmly. I don't think any of those were full sentences. I'm nervous, I whispered. I can see that. Another long, horrible pause. Then he extended his hand. Elias Morgan. Elias Morgan, the CEO. I considered walking into traffic. Instead, I shook his hand, prayed he wouldn't fire me, and tried to smile like I had not just insulted a billionaire with the social skills of a toaster. To my shock, instead of dismissing me, he gestured for me to follow him to his office. Something about him didn't match his reputation. People online described him as cold, untouchable, an alpha to the extreme. But when I walked beside him down the marble hallway, I could feel something different. He was controlled, yes, composed. But beneath the surface, there was a quiet hum of something else. Maybe curiosity, maybe confusion, maybe both. Once inside his office, he sat behind his desk and steepled his fingers, studying me like a puzzle he suddenly wanted to solve. So, you don't like wealthy men, he said. Not the toxic kind, I corrected. Or the ones who see people as accessories. His gaze flickered. You've met men like that. Too many. He nodded slowly, absorbing my words in a way that felt oddly gentle. For a man who ruled skyscrapers and controlled empires, he had a softness I didn't expect. I took a breath. I'm sorry for what I said earlier. No, he said. Don't apologize. You were honest. Brutally so. I winced. He continued, "And I prefer honesty over flattery." Those words should not have warmed my chest the way they did. As he started explaining my internship duties, I struggled to focus. His voice was calm, deep, steady. When he spoke, he looked at me directly, not with CEO arrogance, but with something closer to sincerity. He didn't smile much, but when he did barely, just a small curve, it felt like witnessing a rare celestial event. God, I was in trouble. But the real trouble came 3 days later. It happened during a charity gala Morgan Group hosted. I had been assigned to help coordinate logistics backstage. Elias was, of course, the center of attention. Every influential person in New York seemed to orbit around him. I tried to stay invisible, which was hard because I was extremely good at tripping over non-existent objects, running into walls, and dropping things that should not be droppable. At one point, I slipped behind a curtain to catch my breath and found Elias already there, loosening his tie, looking tired in a way that made him seem almost human. When he saw me, his expression softened. "Long night?" I asked carefully. He let out a quiet exhale. Something like that. He leaned back against the wall, eyes drifting toward the crowd. They only see what they want. Money, power, status. Not me. His words surprised me. I had expected ego, pride, not loneliness. I stepped beside him and said quietly, "Maybe they don't know how to look deeper." His eyes moved to mine, quiet, searching, and for a moment, just a beat, there was something between us. Something I couldn't name yet. Something dangerous. Then disaster struck. Literally. Someone on the staff spoke into my earpiece, asking who that man beside Mr. Morgan was, the one Mr. Morgan seemed very into, the one he kept talking to in private. I tried to whisper back, but my microphone was still on public channel. So the whole team heard me say, "We're not together. I mean, he's my boss and he's not into me that way. He's rich and intimidating and hot in an objectively terrifying manner. But no, he absolutely does not have a crush on me." Dead silence. Then someone backstage laughed loudly through the comms. I shut my eyes, wishing for the sweet release of death. Elias stared at me in stunned disbelief, color rising in his cheeks. Hot in a terrifying way. He repeated, voice dangerously soft. I choked on air. "I didn't mean I mean you are, but not in a way that I would. I mean you're very, but am not trying to." He stepped closer. "Very what? Why God? Why me?" "Very, you know, attractive. Like intimidatingly attractive. Like someone sculpted you out of expensive marble." His lips parted slightly. "And terrifying? In a good way?" He blinked. "There is no good way to be terrifying." I groaned. "Am bad at compliments." "You don't say." But his eyes were different now. Warmer, curious, amused, and something else. Something I couldn't decipher. The next day, everything changed. Elias was different. Softer around me. More attentive. Asking questions. Standing closer. Looking longer. Every time our eyes met, my stomach twisted. Every time he said my name, my pulse skipped. And every time he smiled because of something I said, my chest tightened painfully. But beneath it all was a problem. He thought I was attracted to him. Because of my stupid comms message. Because of the misunderstanding. Because of my mouth. And the more he misunderstood, the more I fell for him. The real him. The man behind the title. Behind the empire. Behind the armor. He wasn't cold. He wasn't cruel. He was lonely. And I hated how much I understood that. One evening, as the city lights glowed against his office windows, he asked me a question that made my heart stop. "Do you really think I'm intimidating?" "Yes," I whispered before I could stop myself. "Why?" "Because you feel too far above me. Like I shouldn't be near you." His jaw clenched. "And what if I want you near me?" My breath caught. But he didn't give me time to answer. Instead, he stepped closer until he was inches from me. His voice was quiet, rougher than usual. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. You confuse me. I'm sorry. Don't apologize." He stared at me for a long, agonizing moment. Then he said something that would unravel the next chapter of our lives. "You make me feel things I didn't think I was allowed to feel." My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Elias, I whispered, you're misunderstanding. He froze. Misunderstanding what? This? Whatever you think I meant that day in the comms, I didn't. His expression shifted. Slow. Sharp. Guarded. Like he was bracing himself for impact. Say it, he murmured. And because he deserved honesty, I did. I wasn't trying to confess anything that day. I never thought someone like you could look at me like that. His breath left him. The silence between us felt like standing at the edge of a storm. Then he whispered, maybe you're wrong. Those 3 words changed everything. And they were only the beginning. Elias's words lingered in the air between us. 3 quiet syllables that felt like they carried the weight of an entire universe. Maybe you're wrong. I didn't know what to do with that. Part of me wanted to run. Another part wanted to lean into him and ask what he meant. Most of me, though, was simply trying to understand how a man like Elias Morgan, someone wealthier than I could ever imagine, someone powerful, controlled, intimidatingly composed, could look at me with a softness that didn't seem possible. I swallowed, my throat tight. What do you mean? He looked away, back toward the window, as if the shimmering Manhattan skyline might help him articulate what he couldn't say out loud. His voice dropped to something low, almost vulnerable. I don't express myself well. Not the way people expect me to. Not the way you deserve. The words hit me harder than they should have. Elias was not a man who confessed things. He was a man who commanded boardrooms, signed deals, and spoke in measured, calculated sentences. Yet here he was admitting something raw just to me. I took a step closer without realizing. Why me? He let out a slow breath. Because you're honest. Too honest, maybe. You don't pretend with me, even when it gets you in trouble. My cheeks heated. You mean when I insulted your cologne? He almost smiled. Almost. I've never had anyone tell me I smelled like a perfume store disaster before. It was a bad day, I muttered. He finally looked at me directly, intensely. The kind of look that made the room feel smaller, warmer. No, he said quietly. It wasn't. Not for me. His words sent a tremor down my spine. And then the moment broke. A knock on the door. Sharp. Businesslike. Elias's expression snapped back into CEO mode instantly. He straightened, his shoulders squaring, jaw tightening. I stepped back, heart hammering. Come in, he said. A man in a pale gray suit walked in, someone from the board. Judging by his polished confidence and the tablet in his hand. Sir, the investors are waiting for your response. Elias nodded slowly. I'll be there in a moment. The man hesitated, noticing me. His gaze sharpened, eyes flicking between us before he offered a thin, unreadable smile. Of course. Take your time. When the door shut behind him, silence settled again, but it wasn't like before. The tension was different now. Heavier. Duty called. Elias turned to me, his voice softer than it should have been. We'll talk later. My heartbeat skipped. Promise? His expression flickered, almost tender. Yes. And then he left, the loud click of the door echoing through the room like the sound of something beginning. Or breaking. I didn't know which yet. Later never came that day. I finished my work and headed home to my tiny apartment, a cramped studio with a window that didn't open and a refrigerator that hummed like it was dying. But that night, none of it mattered. My mind kept replaying Elias's voice, his expression, those 3 impossible words. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe I was. But what did that even mean? That he liked me? That he felt something real? That he wanted something more than the awkward chaos I brought into his life? I fell asleep thinking about it, and woke up the next morning to chaos. It happened at 9 a.m. I was at my desk on the 40th floor, sorting through invoices when Ava sent me a text. Turn on the news. Now, my stomach dropped. Ava didn't say things like that unless something was on fire. I opened a browser window and nearly choked. A headline blared across the screen. Mysterious intern spotted in private moment with Elias Morgan at charity gala. My face. Elias's face. A high-resolution photograph of us standing behind the curtain the night of the gala. Him leaning close, his gaze lingering on me. And the headline wasn't the worst part. The comments were, "Who is that guy? Probably his new boy toy. Look at the way Morgan is staring. That's not professional. Guess the CEO likes them young and cute." My hands trembled on the mouse. No, 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 no. My phone buzzed again. Ava, are you okay? I wasn't sure. Before I could answer, a shadow fell across my desk. I looked up to see Elias. He didn't look angry. He looked furious. But not at me. My office, he said sharply. I stood so fast my chair nearly fell over. People watched us, whispering, staring. The office buzzed with the kind of tension that spreads like wildfire. Elias walked ahead, his strides long and sharp. When the doors to his office shut behind us, the room felt charged, like static before lightning. He turned to me. Are you all right? He asked, voice low. The concern in his tone hit me like a punch. I'm fine, I lied. It's just embarrassing. He exhaled slowly. It's invasive, violating. I blinked. You're taking this worse than I am. He stared at Meth and ran a hand through his hair, frustration simmering beneath the surface. You were pulled into this because of me. Because of a simple moment that shouldn't have been photographed. I should have been more careful. I frowned. You didn't do anything wrong. But he didn't look relieved by that. He looked conflicted, dangerously so. I need to fix this, he said. I shook my head instantly. No. If you make a statement, it'll just fuel the rumors. And if you deny it, people will think he froze. Think what? That something is going on. Silence dropped between us. A heavy, slow-forming silence that made my heart thud against my ribs. Very quietly, he asked, is that what you're worried about? What people think? Yes, I whispered. And no, I don't want your reputation ruined because of me. His jaw clenched. My reputation has survived worse. I swallowed. Maybe. But you deserve someone better to be caught in a scandal with. His eyes darkened. Don't say that. Before I could respond, the door flew open. Elias's assistant, Harper, appeared, breathless. Sir, you need to see this. Elias stiffened. What now? Harper handed him her tablet. It's trending internationally. The board wants to address this immediately. They think the intern needs to be transferred to reduce suspension. No. The word slipped out of Elias before I could process it. Harper blinked. Sir? Elias stepped closer to her, his voice cold enough to freeze glass. He is not being transferred. He's not being moved. He stays exactly where he is. My chest tightened. Harper hesitated, eyes flickering to me. The board won't like that. Elias didn't blink. They'll survive. Harper nodded once and slipped out of the room, closing the door behind her. The moment she left, Elias turned back to me, and something in him snapped. Not in anger, in clarity. I am not letting them punish you for something that isn't your fault. I swallowed, my throat dry. Elias, you don't have to. I do. The conviction in his voice startled me. He took a breath, stepping closer. One step, then another, until the space between us vanished. I didn't dare move. He looked down at me, eyes flickering with something raw and unguarded. I keep trying to stay professional with you, he murmured. I keep trying to do what's expected of me. What a CEO should do. My pulse raced. But every time I get close to you, every time you look at me like that, his voice grew softer. I forget how to be the man the world expects. My breath hitched. Elias, he shook his head. No, I need to say this. I need you to hear it. My stomach twisted. He continued, more quietly. You're not a scandal to me. You're not trouble. You're not a mistake. You are the first thing in years that feels real. I felt the emotion in my chest so hard it nearly hurt. He looked at me like I was something he wasn't supposed to want but did anyway. Elias, I whispered, you're making this harder. Harder? He asked, voice hushed. Because I can't tell what you actually want. He studied me for a long moment, eyes tracing every inch of my face as if memorizing it. Then, barely audible, I want you. The words hit me like a shockwave. But he wasn't done. I want you so strongly it terrifies me. I stopped breathing. My heart wasn't beating normally anymore. It was pounding, erratic, chaotic. Elias continued, voice trembling at the edges. I know you think there's an imbalance between us. Power, status, money. But none of that matters to me. Not when it comes to you. He took a step closer, then another, until his forehead nearly touched mine. I lifted my hand without thinking, resting it on his chest. His breath caught. "Elias, you're misunderstanding again." He whispered, "Am I?" "You don't want this," I said softly. "Not really. You think you do because you're lonely, because you're tired of people pretending around you." His eyes darkened. "And you're not pretending. You're the only one who sees me." "That's not love," I said, voice shaking. "That's desperation." His expression cracked, hurt flashing through his eyes before he masked it. I felt the blow of it in my gut. He stepped back slightly. Not far. Just enough that I felt the distance instantly. "So that's what you think of me?" "No." I reached for him but stopped myself. I didn't mean. He shook his head. "It's fine. I understand." But he didn't. I could see the storm rising in him, the fury, the longing, the confusion, the vulnerability he hated showing. It all collided at once. The intercom buzzed before either of us could speak again. "Elias, the board is waiting." He closed his eyes, inhaled, exhaled. Duty called again. And this time, he let the mask fall over his face completely. When he opened his eyes, the softness was gone. "Whatever you think I feel," he said quietly, "I won't force anything on you. I won't let my confusion ruin your life." I swallowed. "That's not what I'm afraid of." "What are you afraid of?" "That you'll regret this," I whispered. "That I'll be nothing more than a moment of weakness for you." His jaw tightened, but he didn't refute it. He didn't reassure me. He didn't say a single word. Instead, he walked past me toward the door, stopping only when his hand touched the handle. He didn't turn around as he said softly, "You're not a weakness." Then he left, and the door shut behind him with a finality that echoed in my bones. He didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. Not a glance, not a word, not even a nod. He was present physically in meetings, in hallways, in passing, but emotionally he was miles away. He was cold again, controlled again, untouchable again, and it hurt more than I expected. I stared at my reflection in the elevator on the way home. I looked exhausted, lost, like someone who had let something fragile slip through their fingers. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I wasn't wrong. Maybe we both were. 2 days passed, each one more suffocating than the last. Elias avoided me strategically but not obviously. Enough that no one else would notice. Enough that only I felt it. It was torture. Every time I walked into a room, his shoulders stiffened. When our eyes met by accident, he looked away first. When I spoke, he listened but never responded more than necessary. He was distancing himself, protecting himself, and maybe protecting me too. I hated it, more than I should have. On the third night, it happened. I was locking up some files late on the 40th floor when I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, heavy, familiar. I turned. Elias stood there in the dim hallway light, his tie gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up, hair slightly messy like he had been fighting with his thoughts for hours. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he whispered, "I can't do this anymore." My breath caught. "Do what?" "Pretend I don't feel anything." His voice cracked, and suddenly the whole world shifted. He stepped toward me, each movement deliberate, controlled, but trembling beneath the surface. "I thought distance would help," he murmured. "I thought ignoring this would make it go away. But every hour I spent trying to avoid you, every minute I kept thinking." "Thinking what?" I whispered. His eyes softened painfully. "That I want you near me more than I'm afraid of what it means." I felt my chest tighten until it hurt. "Elias, I'm done running from this," he said. "From you. From whatever this is." His voice dropped. "But I need to hear something from you." My pulse raced. He stopped in front of me, too close, too warm, too real. "Tell me if I should stop. Tell me if I'm imagining everything. Tell me if this is only in my head." I swallowed hard. Then I whispered the words that would change everything. "You're not imagining it." His breath left him. And in that quiet, fragile moment, something finally broke open between us, not with a kiss, not with touch, but with truth. And truth, as it turned out, was far more intimate. For a moment, neither of us moved. The hallway was dim, the building nearly empty, Manhattan humming far below us. Elias stood there as if every carefully constructed wall he'd built over years was finally cracking open. And I was the one standing in the quiet middle of the collapse. I didn't know who moved first. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was inevitable. He reached out slowly, as though giving me all the time in the world to pull away. When his fingers brushed mine, barely touching, my breath hitched. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't even a full touch. Just the whisper of connection, and somehow it was enough to unravel me. Elias's voice was almost trembling. Say something or I'll lose my mind. I swallowed hard, stepping closer. I don't want you to stop. His eyes closed, just for a second, like he'd been holding those words inside his lungs, waiting for them, starving for them. When he opened them again, I saw something I'd never seen before. Hope, not fragile, not desperate, but honest. He lifted a hand, pausing near my cheek, hesitating, seeking permission with his eyes. I nodded. His palm touched my skin with a gentleness I didn't expect from someone built out of steel and self-control. The warmth of him seeped into me, grounding me, electrifying me. You undo me, he whispered. You confuse me, I whispered back. He smiled, small, real, aching. Then let me clarify. And slowly, deliberately, he leaned in. Not rushing, not commanding, but asking. When his lips touched mine, it was soft, almost tentative, as if he feared he might hurt me by wanting too much. And then I kissed him back, fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt, pulling him closer. The breath he let out low, helpless, sent a shiver down my spine. He deepened the kiss carefully, reverently, as though he wasn't a billionaire, a CEO, an alpha. As though he was just a man who had finally found something he wasn't willing to lose. When we finally parted, he rested his forehead against mine, breath warm against my lips. I've wanted that for longer than I'll ever admit, he murmured. My heart felt like it might burst. Elias, he pressed a finger to my lips gently. Don't apologize. Don't doubt. Just let this be real for a moment. I nodded because I couldn't trust my voice. We stood like that for a long time, quiet, suspended, breathing the same air, as if the world outside had stopped spinning. Then reality arrived. A chime echoed from the elevator down the hall. Elias straightened slightly, tension returning to his shoulders. His eyes flickered toward the sound before returning to me. We need to talk, he said softly. Really talk. About us. About what this means. About what could happen because of it. I nodded slowly. I know. His hand slid down my arm, fingers trailing until they reached mine. He held my hand with a careful tightness, like he feared I might disappear. Come with me, he said. Where? Somewhere the board won't follow. He guided me into the elevator, pressing his key card against the panel. Most floors disappeared from the list, leaving only one option. Penthouse. The doors closed, sealing us inside a golden reflection of city lights. Elias didn't speak on the ride up. Neither did I. We just stood side by side, hands loosely entwined, hearts pounding in almost synchronized panic and desire. When the elevator opened, I stepped into a different world. Elias's penthouse wasn't luxurious in the cold, soulless way I expected. It was warm, soft lighting, dark wood, bookshelves overflowing with novels, a piano near floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the sprawling glitter of New York. I turned slowly. This is beautiful. He didn't answer. He was watching me instead, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. I suddenly realized something I hadn't before. A man like Elias might command thousands of employees, but he didn't let people into his home. I was standing in a place most of the world would never see, and he looked terrified about what came next. He walked toward the windows, stopping only when the city lights washed over him. This is the first time I've brought someone here, he admitted quietly. Outside my family, the weight of that hit me harder than the kiss had. Elias. He turned to me, voice unsteady. I don't want this to be something we hide in corners, or something that dies under pressure. I want more. My chest tightened painfully. More? He stepped closer. More of you. More of Whatever we can build, whatever we can figure out. I don't care how complicated it is. I stared at him, overwhelmed and terrified and so unbelievably full all at once. But what about the board? What about the company? The press? He shook his head firmly. They don't control my personal life. And they sure as hell don't get to decide who I care about. My heart stuttered. He wasn't just confessing. He was choosing. I hesitated. Elias, I need you to be sure. Really sure. Because if I give you everything I'm feeling, everything I'm afraid of, I don't know if I'll survive you changing your mind. He approached me slowly as one approaches something breakable, precious. I'm sure, he whispered. I've been sure since the moment you insulted my cologne. I laughed despite myself. God, that's a terrible origin story. He smiled, brushing a thumb over my cheek. Then let's make a better one. I felt something inside me unravel, a knot of insecurity, fear, confusion. He was giving me space to breathe, space to believe, space to trust. Finally, I spoke the truth I'd been terrified to admit. I like you. More than I should. More than I planned. More than makes sense. He leaned in, kissing me softly again, slower this time, deeper, warmer, filled with something that tasted like promise. Good, he whispered against my lips, because I'm not planning on letting you go. And for the first time since stepping foot in New York, I didn't feel lost. I felt found. Elias wrapped an arm around my waist, pulling me closer, as the lights of the city glowed behind us like 1,000 silent witnesses. Whatever storm waited outside, rumors, headlines, board members, consequence it could come. We'd face it, together. His voice softened into my hair. Stay tonight. My breath caught. You're sure? More than anything. I rested my forehead against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, a rhythm that somehow matched mine. Then I whispered the only answer that felt true. Okay. And in that quiet moment, in a penthouse above a city that never slept, the confusion that once tore us apart became the very thing that brought us together. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And real was enough. For both of us. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.